I have a couple of kind of contradicting thoughts that run through my mind when I think about PEDs and CrossFit. I think the first one, you're gonna have one camp that's gonna say everybody's on PEDs, and everybody in any sport is on PEDs, and you can't get to the next level unless you're on PEDs. And I think that's a dangerous road to go down, because anytime there's a problem, there's gonna be a solution. And if you don't work on the solution, then you're part of the problem, whether you think it or not. And if you're constantly running around thinking that everybody in CrossFit is doing performance enhancement drugs, then you're part of the problem. Are people doing them? Yes. We obviously know that because people are getting busted. Is everybody doing it? I don't think so. I think some people have a specific genocode that puts them far and above beyond anybody else. I think some people work really hard. I think some people have attributes that through the training that we're doing, which is against traditional strength and conditioning, it's really exposing and showing that we don't truly know how far the human body can go from a training perspective. And I think you look at this in track and field, where people will say you can't compete in the Olympics in track and field unless you're using drugs, et cetera. You can't be a professional cyclist unless you're on EPO. You know, there's so many things that we can get off of. But again, if you're a part of that camp, then you're part of the problem. And I think one thing that we always have to hold true as strength and conditioning coaches is doing what's right, giving our athletes everything we can, believing that it's not about us, it's about them, and trying to put them in the best position to be successful without using performance enhancements. That's one camp. I think my other thought with all this talk that's going on with Ricky Gerard getting busted is a lack of awareness. I mean, two things from his response. One, don't throw people under the bus. You know, I think him making his comment about he's seen other people do it and this and that, it's like, that doesn't mean that you should do it. That's like saying, oh, I saw all these guys punching old ladies in the faces, so I never got caught. I'm just gonna keep punching old ladies in the faces because whatever, I don't know. But you don't just do something and assume it's right or assume it's okay just because you see other people doing it, if you did, or you were told that's the way to go. I mean, if we look at SARMs, I mean, what are SARMs? If you Google SARMs anywhere on any kind of, let's figure out the exact definition here. Selective androgen receptive modulators. Selective androgen receptive modulators. It has all the enhancements of PEDs, and it's banned. You can just Google SARMs and it'll say banned by anti-doping agencies. So if you to take something like that and think, oh, it's okay, then obviously you're not doing research. If you or at some point you were hoping you wouldn't get caught. So I think two things. One, I think it's just a lack of education, and I think you were guided the wrong way. And I also think that you can't call out other people and just lay the assumption that everyone else is doing it and that the drug testing policies are weak. I think that's kind of like a liberal approach that I took, but I think that's the way I feel. I don't think everybody does it. I think if you feel that everyone does it in a sport, then you're part of the problem and you're not part of the solution. And I think what the solution is smarter, more intelligent coaches leading their athletes the right way. Leading the athletes from a code of ethics and not leading the athletes based off the assumption that you can't get ahead unless you take drugs, and everyone's taking drugs, so you might as well do it. Because if you're going down that route, then you're going to go down this black hole and you're not going to come out on the other end, and it's going to be really bad. The solution are the coaches leading the athletes the right way, telling them what to do, guiding them, being able to say, hey, stop being a fucking idiot or else you're gonna get caught and I'm not gonna be part of this. Not worrying about someone being your meal ticket. And I'm not implying that he was in that situation, but that's what the solution is. The problem, again, is saying that everyone does it and that I'm gonna do it because I can't get ahead unless I do it. So that's what I think about that.
Well, if everyone did it, wouldn't Rich Froning, it's not that there's a secret of what people are taking or what drugs will do what. And it's not like there's special access rules that only some people can find it and some people can't. If you have a credit card, you can get anything you want in there. But so if Rich Froning was on some secret sauce that got him to win 4 times, why isn't everyone, if everyone is on drugs, why aren't they all as successful as him?
Yeah, because if people do take it, like, if I take steroids, I'm not becoming Barry Bonds, right? Like, if I take steroids or I take drugs, I'm not becoming Rich Froning. it doesn't happen that way. It's a small piece of the pie that helps with recovery. But like you said, with that being said, you can't just assume because you're not somebody that you can't do what someone does. You can't maintain volume that someone does. The easiest thing in this world to do is be negative and to slander and to have negative thoughts and be too wrapped up in something. And it's like, okay, well, if I can't do that, then they're on drugs because I can't do it, and that's not what's supposed to happen, right? That's the easiest thing to do, not just kind of having ownership. And I think the biggest problem here is if people don't take enough self-ownership. If you take drugs, you're not Rich Froning. It doesn't matter, right? So, and you can't just assume that people like Rich are taking something because of what he's able to do and what he's done. Just give him credit, right? It's like, he's just the best, right? Frazier's the best now. Like, you can't just walk around saying these guys take drugs. And I think that's wrong for the sport, and I think that discredits you if you do that. That's my thought on that. Like, they don't make you that person. Does
catching, a podium finisher, as well as masters, but they've caught masters before, does that make CrossFit as the CrossFit organization look good or look bad?
Well, I think it's good that they're catching them. I think anytime something new is coming out and it's a new sport that people aren't completely familiar with or don't quite understand, then they're always going to try to apply any kind of kink and use it as negativity. Name me one professional sport where they haven't caught people. You can't. It happens, right? The only thing you continually do is have the leaders work on the solution. There's always going to be people that are going to fall into being the problem. There's always going to be people that are going to aid the problem. It doesn't mean no matter what sport, whether it's tennis, whether it's baseball, whether it's CrossFit, no matter what it is, there's a solution and there's a problem. And if you continually have the right people focus on the solution, then it will keep coming out in the right end. There's always going to be people who are going to kind of slander a name or try to slander part of what they do in the game. I mean, that's just the way it is. People will do anything to have the smallest edge to try to win. That's the nature of the beast, right? But people got to understand, who are you? You're the solution or the problem.
So does CrossFit actually turning in one of their own podium finishers actually kind of dispel some of the old myths? Because I know there's long-standing myths that, well, all of the reason they don't use USADA is because USADA is too independent. Whereas by using their, not their own lab, but using a third party, they're able to get the results, and then they decide whether they actually turn in the results, which is all just an internet theory. But now they've obviously turned in a podium finisher that got popped. So does that now make it look like CrossFit is actually potentially cleaner than people were thinking it was?
I hope so. I mean, I try not to stay too engaged in that talk because I don't have time for it, but I think, like, look at the Olympics. The Olympics have an extremely tough testing policy. And what do they say about the Olympics? Well, you only get popped if you have weak political parties, right? It's like they only pop people whose political parties and kind of playing the game. So people are going to complain and say something about anything and everything. And at the same point, Lance Armstrong never, ever, ever tested positive in one of the most stringent and tough testing sports of all time, right? He never tested positive. So just because you're working with a certain company, I mean, if you have enough money and enough people backing you, there's ways around it. So I hope that the fact of CrossFit outing someone on a podium, I think from the naysayers that it may help credit the sport a little bit more, but at the flip side, I don't even think it matters what CrossFit does or who the testing policy is or who they pop. I think that people always have kind of something to say. I think that's just the nature of humans, unfortunately, is that you're always going to kind of look for the downside, look for the negativity from it. And then they're the problem, right? So that's my thought on that. Yeah, I think it's going to help. I think it's going to, I hope it gets people to think twice. I hope it gets people to think a little bit more on it before they do it. And I hope it gets people to research more strictly what they're putting in their bodies. Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I absolutely loved Vellner's response that he threw on social media because I thought it was like so real. And I thought it was real where he talked about something was stolen from him. The emotional connection of standing on a podium for the second year in a row, standing on a podium at the elite level of the sport you love, being able to wave your flag is something that not many people in the world can do. And to do that when you're in any sport is one of the greatest accomplishments. You know, if you're in the Olympics, standing on a podium as your flag's being raised or holding the flag across your shoulders is one of the greatest feelings that you can do and have. And I think Patrick talking about that being stolen from him and that it really dives into the other ugly side of performance enhancements and the effect that it has on everybody else. Meaning, okay, like you cheated and you got stripped, okay, but what about everybody else? What about the person that now didn't get their moment on the podium, didn't get their moment to represent their country, didn't get the moment of their family members to see them standing on the podium and seeing all their hard work pay off and seeing all their hours of dedication and sacrifice and time being spent to be the best they could be? That was stolen from them. What about all the other athletes that kind of missed financial situations because that was stolen from them? You know, so I think the laundry list of the residual effect of that is huge. And I think all those people have a right to be upset, mad, angry, disappointed, whatever it might be. And I think that's something that people need to think about too, is that when you do this, like, you're not just putting yourself in a line, you can potentially be stealing something from somebody else, right? And I think that's the other ugly side of performance enhancements and what it can do.